The sky hung heavy with rain, the kind that makes the world feel suspended. In time that morning should have been like any other tea in the kitchen birds, outside the window. Maybe a puzzle later, but something about it whispered change. I didn't know it yet, but the sound of a leaky pipe was about to break open. The quiet life I thought I had made peace with. My name is Claire Bennett, and I'm 67 years old for most of my adult life. I'd been happily married to Henry, a solid, good-hearted man who made the world gentle for me. We were together for over 4 decades. He died 7 years ago, peacefully in his sleep, and ever since, the days have blurred into one another, like watercolors left out in the rain. My life was measured in simple rhythms: early morning gardening, afternoons volunteering at the public library, downtown, and evenings shared with friends. Women who had also lost husbands, and now clung to the comfort of shared memories and reruns. I thought my time for anything new had passed. Adventure, passion even. Change, no. That was for the young. I had tucked those parts of me into boxes and sealed them away. But that Tuesday, when the pipe under my kitchen sink gave up on me, I did something. Unexpected, I asked for help. I tried. Fixing it myself, wrenches, towels, even a hair dryer at one point. But I knew I was just stalling my niece. Emily had mentioned a young plumber she trusted. He's good, friendly. You'll like him, she'd said. And so I dialed the number when the doorbell rang, and I opened the door. I blinked twice. I had imagined someone older, maybe gruff and weathered, but standing there was Luke Morgan, a man who looked barely into his 30s with tousled brown hair damp from the rain, and a half-smile that made him look like trouble in the best way. "Hi, Mrs. Bennett. I'm Luke," he said, his voice low and warm. "Just Claire," I replied, taken slightly. Back not just by his youth, but by how instantly comfortable he made me feel. He stepped in water dripping off his jacket, toolbox in hand. He moved with confidence and an easy manner that immediately soothed the awkwardness I felt. And unlike so many young people I'd met, he didn't treat me like some fragile relic from another century. He looked me in. I asked real questions, listened as if he cared as he crouched beneath the sink. We chatted. At first, it was harmless. Small talk about the rain, how long he'd been plumbing, how old houses like mine always had secrets. But slowly, the conversation wandered. He told me about his hikes, particularly one recent solo trip through the Smoky Mountains. I found myself leaning in, fascinated by the freedom in his words. He had a love for the wild, for places that made him feel small in the best kind of way. When he was done fixing the pipe, I offered him tea I didn't expect him to accept, but he did, and we sat at my kitchen table like old friends, listening to the rain and sipping from mismatched mugs. He told me about his childhood in Oregon, his love for classic literature, and his plans to eventually build his own cabin. I hadn't felt this alive in a long, long time. After that first visit, Luke began coming by more often. First, it was another small repair, a loose step, a flickering hallway light. Then it was just to check in. I didn't question it. I welcomed it. Each visit was a breeze that carried me further from the stillness of the last 7 years. I found myself anticipating his knock. I started paying attention again, brushing my hair before he arrived, choosing clothes that made me feel like more than just a widow going through the motions. I was laughing more, dreaming again. We began to talk about deeper things, regret, the chances we didn't take, the people we used to be before. The world told us who to become one evening. Luke invited me for a walk through Riverside Park. "The trees are insane this time of year," he said. "Golden and loud and wild. You've got to see it." I paused, almost said no. What would people think? A woman in her 60s walking arm in arm with a man in his 30s. But then something inside me whispered asterisk. Why not? Asterisk. So I went, and that walk, simple, slow, and breathtaking, made me feel younger than I had in decades. The way he talked, the way he listened. He made me feel like asterisk, claw, asterisk again. Not just Mrs. Bennet, we didn't touch not even a brush of hands, but I went home floating over the next several weeks. Things changed. I began waking up excited. I started sketching again, something I hadn't done since my 20s. As I pulled out old journals, bought a fresh set of paints, even looked up cooking classes. The light in me, long dimmed by grief, was burning again. Luke noticed too. One evening we sat on my front porch, drinking wine as cicadas buzzed around us. The air was thick with late summer. He looked at me, really looked at me. "You've changed," he said quietly. "I think I've just remembered who I used to be." I replied. There was a silence between us, then full of electricity. Then he leaned forward, slow, unsure, giving me time to stop it if I wanted. But I didn't. His lips met mine in the gentlest kiss I'd felt in years. Not urgent, not rehearse. Just honest. When we pulled apart, my breath caught in my throat. We didn't speak about it. We didn't need to. It had happened, and I didn't regret it. 4 days afterward, I was walking in a dream. I thought maybe this, whatever it was, could become something real. I knew the odds, the years between us, but still I hoped, and then he disappeared. No text. No call, just silence. At first I thought he might be busy, but the days turned into a week, then 2. I asked Emily if she'd heard from him. That's when she said it. "Oh, didn't I tell you? Luke moved to Seattle, took a new job, left last week." I felt like I'd been punched. He hadn't told me. He hadn't even said goodbye. All those conversations, the kiss, the way he looked at me like I was something bright. How could it all vanish without a word? I didn't cry. Not right away. I was numb, staring at my phone like it was a stranger. But then, while cleaning the den, I found the copy of Asterisk Leaves of Grass. Asterisk he had given me to geared, worn with a note inside. Asterisk for the days when you need to feel brave again, and just like that. The tears came. I wasn't only grieving Luke. I was grieving what he had unlocked in me. The version of myself that had bloomed in his light. The warmth I had allowed back into my life. He was gone and I was left, not with answers, but with memories still even as the pain lingered. Part of me knew he had reminded me how to asterisk feel asterisk again, and I couldn't unlearn that. The days that followed Luke's disappearance felt like winter, even though it was still technically summer. My home was quiet in a way. It hadn't been in months. The breeze that once felt refreshing now pressed in against the windows like a reminder. I kept asking myself why he hadn't said goodbye. If he had simply told me he was leaving, would it have hurt less? Maybe not. I tried to carry on as I had before he entered my life. Gardening, reading, volunteering, but everything felt like an imitation of life, rather than living. The garden looked dull, the library felt cold. My friends' laughter sounded distant. I had been cracked open, and now everything seemed too loud or too hollow. I kept wondering if any of it had meant anything to him. Was I just a fleeting interest? A lonely woman to entertain? Had he felt pity? Curiosity? Or something deeper? I hated how much space those questions took up in my mind. Emily stopped by one afternoon, bringing me a peach cobbler and her usual bright energy. She talked about her job, her new boyfriend, and some travel plans. I smiled, nodded, and barely followed a word she noticed. "Aunt Claire," she said gently. "What's going on? You've been off 4 weeks." I hesitated. Then I said it. Luke left without telling me, and I don't know what hurts more, him going or thinking it meant something. Her face softened with understanding. She reached for my hand. "I don't know what happened between you two, and I don't need to, but I know you're not the kind of woman. People forget. Maybe he didn't know how to handle it. Maybe, but that didn't make it easier. I spent the next few weeks trying to build something of myself. Again, I painted more. I walked the long trail near the lake. I even signed up for a weekend art retreat in Asheville, a small step toward that adventure. I'd always put off the world outside. My windows was still wide, and I knew I had to find a way to live in it. Again, not just exist in it, then. One Thursday afternoon, 2 months after he vanished, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address, just my name, *Claire*, written in his handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before I opened it. Inside was a letter. **Kayla****. I don't know how to begin this without sounding like a coward. But maybe that's what I was leaving without saying. Goodbye was the hardest thing I've done in a long time, and I know that's no excuse. I owe you so much more than silence, but I didn't have the words until now. You made me feel something I wasn't prepared for, not because of your age or because of what the world would say, but because I saw. You really saw you, and it scared the hell out of me. You're not a woman who's stuck. In the past, you're fire beneath soft earth. You reminded me that connection doesn't ask for permission. It just happens. But a panicked Seattle offered a job, a reset, and I ran toward it like it would solve something inside me. I told myself it was the right choice, that our story was just a passing season. But I was wrong. I think about you every day. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect our response. But I needed you to know that what happened between us was real. At least it was to me, Luke. I read the letter 3 times. Then I cried. Not the bitter, angry tears from before, but something quieter. A sadness softened by understanding he had felt it too. It wasn't just in my head. He was young, maybe too young to know what to do with something that didn't fit his plan. I didn't excuse what he did, but I didn't had him for it anymore. I folded the letter, pressed it between pages of the book he gave me, and decided I wouldn't write back. Not. Then instead, I focused on something else myself. The art retreat was small, just 10 people gathered in a cozy lodge surrounded by pines and wildflowers. I hadn't touched oil paint in 40 years, but I felt at home the moment my fingers dipped into color. I painted sunrises and tangled woods dreamscapes, and even a silhouette of a man standing at the edge of a trail. Not Luke exactly, but maybe the version of him I had carried with me at night. We sat by the fireplace, sharing stories. Most of the others were my age or older. Widows, divorces, lifelong wanderers we laughed about. Aging shared heartaches and spoke of futures we still hoped to claim. I realized I wasn't alone in starting over. One morning during a walk through the woods, I met someone. His name was Thomas, late 60s, recently retired from teaching literature in Virginia. We bumped into each other while photographing the same moss-covered rock. He laughed and offered me coffee from his thermos. We talked for hours. He didn't ask about my past. He just listened to the present. And in his presence I felt seen again. But this time, without the burn of confusion or unanswered questions. We spent the rest of the retreat walking, painting, and discovering simple joys. He had a gentleness to him, a steadiness I hadn't known I missed. He was curious, funny, and not afraid of silence. As the retreat ended, he handed me a postcard. On it was a painting of the lodge, and in his handwriting *. Let's keep wandering together if you'd like to do. *. I smiled all the way home back in my quiet house. I opened Luke's letter last time. I held it, read it, and then set it down. I didn't need to revisit the ush. I had honored it, learned from it, and now I was ready to turn the page. I still thought of Luke from time to time. I didn't forget what he gave me, a reminder that life isn't over just because you've grayed or grieved. He had shaken me awake, and for that I would always be grateful. But I had walked through the fire, and I was still here, still Claire, still living, and as autumn rolled in, painting the trees in brilliant reds and golds, I found myself walking through Riverside Park again, the same path, but this time I wasn't waiting for anyone. I was walking forward toward whatever came next.